Hi guys, this is gsndom.com and I'm here with the Vernee Apollo Lite for a full review. We already reviewed the Vernee Tor and now it's time for another handset from the same company. This model is an affordable 4GB RAM handset with a deca-core CPU, which means it has 10 cores, and it's priced at $179 on gearbest.com, and there have been many special offers for the product, some even taking it down to $99. So Vernee is a company, it's a startup from China. They became famous thanks to the 6GB RAM phone Vernee Apollo, and this is its light version, Vernee Apollo Lite. It's a 5.5 incher, basically a phablet that comes in silver or space gray, which frankly reminds me of the hue called plum rather than space gray. It's got a metal unibody approach with a 2.5D glass panel at the front, looking not bad, I would have to say. The back is gently curved and we got the plastic lid at the bottom, plastic lid at the top for the sake of the antennas. The buttons on the side feel a bit flimsy, you can actually hear that, but they're pretty comfy, and this phone is made by CNC processing. It's pretty thick at 9.2mm and pretty heavy at 175 grams, which is actually 20 grams heavier than the LG G4 that was rather massive itself. In spite of that, it's reasonably comfy if you like a bulkier phone and has a solid build. The facade is good looking, but in the end, nothing to write home about, nothing special. And it's reasonably easy to use with a single hand, although I've seen easier usage. Now, as far as the screen goes, this is a 5.5 incher with a full HD resolution and a special panel. This is no regular panel, it's a Sharp IXO IPS. So the IXO panels from Sharp are usually pretty cool. This one promises 1000:1 contrast, 95% NTSC color gamut, and Gorilla Glass 3 protection. We don't have a video player, so I'm going to have to resort to the gallery for that purpose. And this is what the playback experience looks like on this display. So we got pretty okay calibrated colors, maybe a bit too white, the image I mean. The black isn't very deep, we got wide view angles, and the contrast is, I would say, medium, or rather so. In full sunlight you may have a bit of problem with this screen's contrast. Now, other aspects like the pixel setup, these are the RGB stripes pixels, and we also measure the brightness and achieve 385 lux units, which is just okay, could be a bit better for current standards. It beats the LG G5 and HTC One M9, for example, not bad, both are flagships, but scores below the OnePlus One and the Ulefone Power, for example. Believe it or not, we do have quite a few settings for the screen, you can find them here. We got Mira Vision, which 3 main modes, standard, vivid and user mode, and user mode itself triggers a lot of settings: contrast, saturation, picture brightness, sharpness, color temperature, dynamic contrast, and blue light defender, basically filters out blue light so you can sleep better at night, the melatonin secretion and all that. Okay, other than that, we got the brightness level, adaptive brightness, wallpaper, sleep, font size, and that's about it. A pretty reasonable screen, but not more than that. Frankly, I was expecting more from Sharp's panel. Now, on the CPU front, you probably know that we're dealing here with the deca-core CPU, the MediaTek Helio X20, 10-core 64-bit CPU, and the GPU is an Mali T880 MP4. We also get 4GB of LPDDR3 RAM, 32GB of storage, and a microSD card slot. No matter which app you open and no matter what you do, the interface is quite fluid, there's no lag here. This is a relatively future-proof handset, so good performance, no lag, and no problem with the gaming. We played the game Zombie Anarchy, which was recently launched by Gameloft, and also our benchmark game, which is this one here. It's called Riptide GP Renegade, and has very solid graphics and also tweaks. You can push the graphics all the way to the level of Ultra to really test your device. Now let's test it. Okay, so 4GB of RAM on a cheap price, quite a solid offer, and also a 10-core CPU is also a very good offer. Pretty responsive, the water looks nice, there is no frame rate drop, nice lighting, effects, shadows, so everything checks out here. The gaming experience is a-okay. And we also did a bunch of benchmarks. Let's check those out. So we tried everything. We tried Quadrant, Antutu, the works. Let's find Quadrant in here somewhere. Okay, this is it. In this benchmark we surpassed the Huawei P9 Plus, which is no small feat, and even the famous Li Echo Li Max 2, while in Antutu 6, which is one of the most famous benchmarks right now, we have a very respectable score that goes above the Huawei Mate 8 and also the Nexus 6P. In Geekbench 4 things got really interesting. In the multi-core subtest we surpassed the OnePlus 3 and the Xperia XZ, which are Snapdragon 820 devices, and that's very impressive. Since the CPU is so powerful, you may be wondering if it gets overheated or not. Well, the answer is not. After running the game we saw before, Riptide, we got to 36.6 degrees Celsius, which is okay, doesn't go over the limit. And after the intensive benchmark GFX bench, we got to 38.3 degrees Celsius, once again no overheating. Now inside the phone there is a 3180 mAh battery with a special MediaTek Pump Express technology that charges the phone faster than usual. Anyway, let's see how it did in our test. It all starts with an HD video playback test in a loop, and let's see how that came out. And then we go to the PC mark and everybody's happy. So let's first find the playback test. Here we go. So we achieved 7 hours and 44 minutes here, so 7 hours and 44 minutes of continuous HD video playback, which is not exactly very impressive for such a massive case. This result places us below the Huawei P9 Lite and the Huawei Honor 4X, also the Vernee Tor, this 7 hours and 43 or 44 minutes depending on how you want to take it. And other than that, we were able at least to beat the Asus Zenfone 2 and the Huawei P9. Now as far as the PC mark test goes, this simulates the continuous usage, and here we scored 5 hours and 44 minutes. Once again a modest result. We placed below the LG AKA and LG Nexus 5X, but above the LG V10 and Xperia Z5 Premium that has the handicap of a 4K display. The charging is the best part of the phone. It charges via USB Type-C, has those special technologies, and a charger that offers 2 ampere or 1.5 amperes, 5 volts, 7 volt or 9 volt or even 12 volts. Those are its options. Anyways, the phone charges in 1 hour and 18 minutes, which is fantastic. It's actually top 5 of all phones we tested. It's superior to the OnePlus 3 and the Galaxy S6, and that's excellent. In the settings department you can find battery settings right here. We got battery saver and battery optimization. They're very straightforward, and there is also standby intelligent power saving, which means that during the standby you can save some juice, while battery optimization is basically those from Android Marshmallow. So overall the battery isn't very impressive in video playback or continuous usage, but the charging is really impressive. Now as far as the acoustics are concerned, you see here that we have 2 grills flanking the USB Type-C port. Actually only the right one is the speaker, and we make use of an old school music player with options that go like this: typical equalizer, stock equalizer with genre settings, 5 custom frequencies, bass boost, surround sound and some reverb options. You need to stay away from it for now, and let's listen to some tunes and see what the speaker can do. Okay, conclusions: we're getting here a pretty loud experience, clear sound, a so-so bass, a bit of distortion at max volume, the high notes are well rendered, and there is a bit of vibration going on at the back. Now we also did a decibel meter test, and let's see how that played out. So we achieved 88.1 decibels at both the front and back, which is a solid result and actually the equal of the iPhone 7. It beats the LG G5 and scores below the Galaxy S6, that's what you have to remember. We do not get bundle headphones, and we do get FM radio and also a bunch of extra settings for the acoustics, which you can find here. Sound enhancement, BS, audio enhance, loudness and surround, just for the sake of extras. Now time to address the cameras. This one is a 16 megapixel shooter with a Samsung sensor, actually the same one from the Xiaomi Redmi Note 3 Pro. It's supposed to offer face detection autofocus and even 4K video on paper, dual tone flash here, and at the front 5 megapixel shooter, so 16 megapixels and 5 megapixels. Now let's see how the camera app behaves. Not the fastest starting in the world, a very old school and slightly underwhelming interface. And speaking of underwhelming, slow focus, as you can see, slow picture taking and pretty slow zoom. Now the options are typical. There are only two main capture modes, regular and panorama. There's also HDR at the top, and the very typical options you've seen on a ton of phones like GPS exposure, white balance, anti-shake. And here we only have these options for the video, no trace of 4K, sadly. Now we have to go to the actual gallery and see the actual pictures taken with this camera. We have daytime shots, nighttime shots, the full works, and let's start with the daytime ones. Okay, so it was the end of October, a pretty cloudy day mixed in with a bit of sun, and I was pretty disappointed by the fact that there are quite a few blurry shots here and the camera is not constant at all. Some shots may be good colors, good brightness and all that, and some are very disappointing, so you don't know what to expect. Just check out this sample and then this one. The HDR really plays a big role here, and when you're looking for the distance shots, landscape shots, you see that you're missing a lot of details in the distance. Somehow the selfies are quite okay. I'm talking about the texture of my face and the hair, and also the background is reasonable, so the selfies are decent. It's an on and off camera. Some shots are good, others have a ghost effect, they're blurry, and the colors are totally unrealistic. Too bad for that mist that appears sometimes. The panorama that we triggered with this phone has a modest resolution of 8384 over 800 pixels. We continue with the list of captures. This is the panorama I mentioned before, underwhelming resolution but pretty okay clarity. And here we are again, attempting some close-ups. Some of them are quite good, I have to admit that. And here we are. We took quite a few shots before achieving what seemed to be solid macro shots of flowers. At times this camera feels more like an 8 megapixel shooter than a 16 megapixel one, and it doesn't quite deliver what we expected in spite of the price. Just look at this green, unrealistic, artificial, and details aren't very good. It's actually worse than my very own iPhone 5. My iPhone 5 takes better shots than this 16 megapixel shooter, sadly. It's a letdown no matter the price. Now, those are daytime shots. We go to the nighttime ones, and be sure to check out the full gallery because we have more colorful shots here. They're an on and off affair. So, nighttime shots. Well, lots of fog, washed out images, a bit grainy and yellowish. Even the flash is rather poor here, and the street light halos are quite big. Some clarity can be found in landscape, but nothing fancy truly. If you're patient enough to focus, you may achieve a passable shot, but nothing more than that. So you can forget about nighttime photos only if you're close up and you're taking a long while to focus. Other than that, nothing. Now when it comes to the video, no trace of 4K. 4K is promised only on paper. We shot videos in 3GPP, Full HD, 70 megapixel bitrate and 30 frames per second frame rate. The videos go like this. So the colors are a bit unrealistic. When you zoom in, there's serious detail loss. What I like best about this video is that the exposure change is quite okay and the microphone was truly solid. Clarity is, let's say, okay, especially in close-up, and at least there's no focus loss. So no focus loss, good microphone, okay exposure change, but you can forget about realistic colors and things like that. One more shot here, truly autumn, lots of gold, the sun in front of us. So only reasonable, but not more than that. Frankly speaking, I remember the way my iPad mini 2 shot videos. It felt a bit superior to what we're seeing here. And that's during the day. During the night, things get actually a bit worse. It drops, the filming drops to 14 frames per second and 8 megapixel bitrate, and everything seems to move in frames, as you can see here. Jittery motion, okay lighting, but some ghosting here. And once again, a shout out for the microphone that does a pretty solid job in spite of the underwhelming video capture. We're done with the camera. Things to remember are the maybe selfies, maybe some of the video capture, but not more than that, and of course the close-ups if you're patient enough. Now the pre-installed web browser, let's put it to work. As you can see, it's quite slow, and the benchmarks confirm that. Velamo and some Spider. This is the virtual keyboard, stock one, nothing fancy here. Now on the connectivity front, we get an USB Type-C port at the bottom with USB OTG support and also 4G LTE of the FDD LTE kind. This is a dual SIM dual standby phone with a turbo download feature that combines 4G and Wi-Fi for faster downloads. We get a micro SIM and a nano SIM card slot, Wi-Fi A BGN, Bluetooth 4.0, GPS, and both SIMs are 4G compatible. Now, as far as the calls are concerned, what we're dealing with here is a pretty reasonable volume, okay clarity and okay signal, but frankly speaking the volume could have been only a bit higher. We also did a speed test and let's see how that played out. Okay, so we go here and as you can see, pretty solid result, especially on Wi-Fi. We achieved 276 megapixel downloads, 25 megapixel uploads on Wi-Fi, 97 megapixel downloads on 4G, 46 megapixel uploads. So I would say we're doing fine, especially in the Wi-Fi department. The software experience feels very familiar, and that's what I'm about to talk about now. So it's Android 6.0 Marshmallow, pretty much stock. Not much customization here. Multitasking offered like a carousel, swipeable carousel to the side to close apps, and then you get a fluid UI, you get a drop down section with notifications and quick settings. Pinch the screen or keep it pressed to trigger this area, wallpapers, widgets and settings, and the widgets are all stock, nothing fancy or out of the ordinary. The settings, they're also typical, there's nothing extra, maybe aside from the navigation bar, options, and of course there's encryption and security. We got a fingerprint scanner here and it's time to put it to the test. Okay, so fingerprint, continue, set up screen lock, add a pin, confirm it, notification and all that, find the sensor, and this is the setup, 2 steps, 3 steps, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16 steps to set it up. And now it's time to unlock the phone using my print alone, so here we go. As you can see, it feels like a millisecond slower than other modern phones, and what I don't like about it is that it doesn't recognize my print at 90 degrees. As you can see, it barely worked. Anyways, we get further from that and we get to the apps, possibly the best aspect of the phone. No bloatware, only the strictly necessary ones. I counted 22 and that's a positive record. So no bloatware, only the core Android stuff. As you can see, nothing fancy aside from what I've installed. So it's time for the verdict of the Vernee Apollo Lite, that's the name. So on the pro side we have an okay build, a pretty good brightness of the screen, also a solid performance, good hardware, fast charging, quite loud speaker, good selfies, fast Wi-Fi and 4G, stock user interface and no bloatware. Now on the cons side of things, I have to say that the screen is a bit too wide and doesn't deliver what we expected from a sharp panel. The battery is not impressive and the promise of 4K for the camera doesn't deliver. There are very few camera options. The camera overall feels a bit underwhelming, and finally the fingerprint scanner speed is so-so. This remains a gaming phone in my view. It's a bit future-proof. It's a powerful smartphone with a powerful hardware that can handle selfies and acoustics fine, also a bunch of games, but I expected more from this screen panel and more from the camera especially. In the end, it remains a mid-range gaming phone and that's about it. This is the Vernee Apollo Lite and it costs around $160 or $150 on GearBest. Bye bye.